If everything ends up going to and you look at me and if I'm fine, it means that you're gonna be fine. When we saw this happen, and I wanna say unidentified because right now it's identified. Everybody knows what they are now. They're either man-made or they're not. I myself never thought to this day that I'd ever see anything like this.
All 5 of you, right, already testified in front of Congress.
For people who don't know, 2009 during this operation, that's why we're responding, obviously with the humanitarian nature of this, because 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, that's mainly what the expertise is, at least as far as Marines go. It's not really combat operations for the most part, even though Indonesia, among other parts in that world, are large networks for terrorists and insurgents. So having that expertise of going in and try to help people, I think is also good to us because it teaches you the balance of it. Instead of being a war fighter, you actually get to help people instead of launching bullets at people. You're still helping people in a different cause. You still get to be heroes for people, which is great. So totally incidental as far as our encounter. When we went onto the slope, because we had our LZ, it was a hasty LZ, and they're dropping supplies. They have, a bunch of stuff, and it's other helos too. They're just kind of forming a perimeter on the city, dropping Marines here. You could provide overwatch. Now, the only thing that's unsettling with this is the fact that they never gave us any comms. You know as well as I do how risky that is.
You didn't have any comms?
We didn't have any comms.
Interesting.
So the Marine that was with me, that was a higher rank than me, was very pissed off about it because he was a Fallujah Marine, so he went through a lot of shit.
Yeah.
And one of those things, I remember him kept telling me, he's like, if everything ends up going to shit, and you look at me and if I'm fine, it means that you're going to be fine. And I remember him telling us all that in the stick, and he's a good Marine. He's a very outstanding guy. Learned a lot from him during my time in. And I thought about that concept, but then he started picking things apart too. He wasn't very comfortable with that. But luckily the thing was that we were still relatively, close enough to the LZ, because when the bird was supposed to land, because obviously they were coming in, dropping the supplies, and they'd bank off. The last one that would come down would land. That's when we'd basically run to the helo, 300 meters. You're in good shape, and you have an average combat load, 120 rounds, so to speak, with an M16A4 and a Camelback. Not really much, so you can make that trek relatively quick. But they also have security on those birds, too. With the flight crew, with the gunners on the sides, they had 50s on them. So if there is some opposition, they're going to meet with those on top of us engaging them. So we were positioned near the slope. It wasn't like a steep grade or anything, but it was enough to obscure what was going on the other side that we had no idea what was going on. So we got, naturally you want to take the high ground so you have observation of everything. And this is when we came across this operation. And it was something that stuck out like a sore thumb because here you have terrain that is a jungle terrain, very green vegetation, things like that. And then you have something that's sticking out right in the middle of an opening. And it looks very odd. It's something that's, I'll remember to the rest of my life. To the day that I leave this earth, I'm going to remember seeing that. And it's just imprisoned up here. I had a camera with me. It was a Panasonic cheap camera. It had kind of like, ancient compared to what you got set up in the studio, But it was enough at least because it was part of stuff that I've never did a humanitarian assistance before. So I was taking videos of them dropping stuff off, things like that, until we trekked up to this point. Was taking some pictures because it's a place you would never really ever go to, at least the real part of Indonesia. It's not like Bali or Surabaya where it's like touristy stuff.
Yeah.
This is where it's actual cultured people. You're actually seeing reality here. So it's stuff that I kind of wanted to document and just say, I was a part of this. I can look back and say, I remember that. But then looking north past that slope and seeing that down, and I took some video and some pictures of that. And I had, I stuck it in my dump pouch. I was a saw gunner naturally, so I had M249. That was my favorite weapon. I liked having a belt-fed machine gun. As much as a pain in the ass, I liked having that compared to an M16 or an M4. So because we were in the humanitarian, all they did was give us M16A4s. They had RCOs at that time. They weren't the ACOGs that had the mills on the sides for windage and stuff like that, as well as the PEC-15s. So if we were doing any kind of night range or night operation, we'd have those with our PVS-14s. So it's just a very basic loadout that we were doing, nothing really crazy. And when we saw this happen, and I want to say unidentified because right now it's identified. Everybody knows what they are now. They're either man-made or they're not. And if they're not, the government's coming out and telling people, admitting it, not directly, but they're still admitting it to a degree that it exists. Because why would they spend time with this legislation coming out?
That's a good point.
Why would they do that? If it doesn't exist, why were they going through these measures to basically hold a gun up to these guys' heads and say, you better relinquish this technology or else? They're not just doing it, and knowing and seeing this unfold, even being in this position of having to brief the Senate Intelligence among the Special Intelligence Service too, which oversees the letter agencies, because they have no idea what's going on either. But the fact that all of us coming together and making this loud amount of it's multiple different facets.
I mean, you guys already, all five of you, right, already testified in front of Congress?
So we testified to people of the Senate Intelligence Committee, which were there some Congress people there as well as some senators.
So in front of the Intelligence Committee by the Senate?
And you know as well as I do, in any kind of setting like that, whether you're in a SCIF, it's all under oath still, because they're having you sign NDAs and things like that. So your expected support that they've been giving me, as well as the protection, is just something that I'm very thankful for. I'm very thankful that they all have open minds of this subject. Even though for years there's been a stigma to it. For years there's been a giggle effect because of little green men and flying saucers and all that. I myself never thought to this day that I'd ever see anything like this.